She killed 4 dragons the day she died. Gormlaith. Golden-Hilt had been fighting since dawn. Not wounding, not driving off. Killing. 4. And when the last one fell, she did not rest. She climbed. She went to the top of the world with her sword still drawn and stood in the dark and the cold, watching the sky for one more set of wings. Not because anyone told her to, because she believed with everything she was that this was what winning looked like. She did not know what the old man was holding. Take a slow breath. There is no hurry. This story has waited thousands of years already, and it will wait a little longer while you settle in. What happened at the top of that mountain, what Gormlaith and Hakon and a careful old man named Felldir did, and what one of them knew that the others did not, is the reason the dragon problem still exists in your era. There is something sitting at the center of this. I want to hold a little longer. When it arrives, it reframes everything that came before it. The war they fought had a last day. The war they started is still going. And somewhere inside the ruins and the carved stone and the ancient burial mounds of this world, the whole story has been waiting quietly to be assembled. Begin in the Merethic era, before the First Era, before recorded time, or at least before time was considered worth recording. Ysgramor and his people crossed from Atmora, the cold continent to the north, and settled in a land that already had owners. Not elven owners, not human owners, dragons. The ancient Nordic word for them was drag-kon. The word was forbidden. Commoners could not say it aloud. That privilege, using the name of the creature that ruled your life, the name of the thing that determined whether your village stood or burned, belonged exclusively to the dragon priests. Think about what that is. Not just the fact of living under creatures that could end you from the sky. The additional detail. You were not permitted to name them. The most powerful thing in your world, the thing that shaped everything you ate and built and feared, existed in your daily language only as a silence. A gap where a word should be. The rulers decided that even the language of fear belonged to them. The early relationship between dragons and the Atmoran settlers was not always this way. These people had come from a tradition that worshipped animals as avatars of the gods. The hawk, the wolf, the snake, the moth, the whale, the bear, the fox, and foremost among them, the dragon. The ancient Nords regarded the dragon as the head of their pantheon, and the dragons, who had never encountered a species so eager to be told they were divine, embraced this enthusiastically. A system emerged. The dragon priests, human intermediaries who had pledged absolute obedience to their winged masters in exchange for small fractions of draconic power, set down laws and codes of living. They demanded tribute. They built the temples. They maintained the uneasy arrangement between sky and earth. For a time, the older records suggest, the system held. Then something changed. What changed is not fully agreed upon. A particular dragon, a series of weak kings, an ambitious priest, something that shifted the cult from order into cruelty. What is clear is what it looked like after. The dragon priests began to rule with an iron fist. The word slave appears in the older texts without euphemism. Rebellion was met with retaliation. When the retaliation could not contain the rebellion, the dragons stepped in directly. Their response was swift and brutal. The dragon war had begun, and at first, badly. Here is a detail worth pausing on, because the ruins you walk through in Skyrim are not just ruins. They are the physical remainder of this arrangement. Every ancient Nordic ruin, with its stone corridors and its vault sealed by a dragon claw, was at some point a temple to a dragon. The elaborate tombs where dragon priests sleep their undying sleep were built because a dragon priest's followers believed, genuinely, devoutly, that their master would be raised when Alduin returned. They entombed themselves with their priests. They performed daily rituals to maintain the connection across death. These are not ruins of failed civilizations. They are ruins of a civilization that was waiting. Alduin was not just the leader of the dragons. He was, in the cosmology that the dragon cult organized their entire world around, something more fundamental than a king. He was the firstborn of Akatosh, the dragon god of time. His peers considered him the most acclaimed creation of their divine father. And Alduin knew it. Rather than fulfill what the oldest lore suggests was his actual purpose, the World Eater devouring each age to make way for the next, he chose to rule instead. He chose to be worshipped. That choice does not go unnoticed. It goes noticed by at least one of his siblings, one whose name, in the language of his own kind, carries the full weight of what he had been before he changed. Hold that name when it arrives. The dragon priests ruled from their capital, Bromjunar, in what is now called Yalmarch. The most powerful among them were given masks, not decorative, but functional, augmenting their considerable power. The greatest of these, Konarik, was kept in a secret place and only brought out in times of war, bestowed on whoever was appointed warlord. When the Dragon War ended, the masks scattered. The priests who owned them are still, technically, alive, undead in their tombs, waiting for a resurrection that an old man with an elder scroll made sure will never come the way they imagined it. But that is still not the part of the story this is about. His name, in the dragon language, means Ambition Overlord Cruelty. Let that settle for a moment. The dragon who made the whole rebellion possible. The one who turned the tide, carried that name. Paarthurnax. Not a name chosen by enemies or translators. A name that reflects, in the language of his own kind, something true about who he actually was. He was Alduin's lieutenant, second in command. He had served his older brother faithfully, and the oldest sources acknowledge this with unusual directness. He committed atrocities. The Blades, who maintain records of every dragon known to have survived the Dragon War, want him dead not despite the fact that he later changed, but because of what he was before he did. Something shifted. Two explanations survive, and neither has been settled. Paarthurnax himself says it was Alduin's false claim of godhood, that his older brother was meant to be the World Eater, not the ruler of mortal lands, and that claiming divine kingship over men was a corruption of Akatosh's design. Nordic legend offers something simpler. Kine, goddess of the storm and mother of men and beasts, took pity on the Kasar, enslaved humans, and intervened. She sent Paarthurnax to them. Which version is true is, perhaps, the wrong question. What is true is the consequence. Paarthurnax descended from the upper reaches of the throat of the world, the highest mountain in all of Tamriel, which the Nords call Monavan, the peak, and began to teach. What he taught was the Thuum, the voice. In ancient times, this was a power that belonged exclusively to dragons. Their speech had always been more than communication. It was the substance of the world, a manipulation of reality through language. Dragons did not just say fire. They said it in a tongue where the word and the thing it named were the same. And now a dragon, the one with the worst possible name, was giving this to humans. The first students were three: Gormlaith Golden-Hilt, Hakon One-Eye, Felldir the Old. The names survived because the wall survived. Alduin's wall, carved into the rock of Skyhaven Temple by craftsmen of the Ancient Dragon Guard, a gift from one generation to the ones who would have to clean up the unfinished work. The wall depicts the Dragon War. It depicts the battle at the throat of the world. The Dragon Guard built it because they understood something important. Alduin's return was not a possibility. It was a certainty. They sealed the temple so that only a dragonborn's blood could open it. They were writing a letter for a specific reader who had not yet been born. Gormlaith was the fighter, famed specifically for killing 4 dragons in one day. A number so precise that it survived everything. The fall of empires, centuries of forgetting, thousands of years of forgetting after that. When you find her in Sovngarde, where the honored dead await among the feasting halls of Shore, she wears no helmet. She carries her ancient sword. She speaks first, fastest, most urgently. She is not the kind of warrior who deliberates. She came to the summit of the throat of the world to take Alduin's head, and she believed without reservation that this was possible. Hakon One Eye was the fighter's counterpart, the one who stands at your side and holds the line. What the memory preserved in the time wound shows is a man pacing, watching the sky, saying aloud that they have staked everything on this old man's plan. The weight behind those words is not strategic. It is personal. He has given people he loved to this war. He needs this to be the day it mattered. Felldir the Old was the planner, the architect. He had said plainly before the battle began, "None have yet stood against Alduin himself. He is beyond our strength." Not a conclusion arrived at under pressure, a premise from which everything else would follow. 3 people on the same mountain, looking at the same sky, waiting for the same wings. Gormlaith believed. Hakon trusted. Felldir knew. There are some things you cannot say to people who are about to die for you. The word walls scattered across Skyrim. Those carved stone tablets where words of power wait in the dragon tongue are, in a way, the legacy of what Paarthurnax started at this mountain, made permanent. The dragons once controlled who could access the voice. Now the knowledge was being pressed into stone for anyone who carried the gift to find. The Dragon War was, among other things, a war about who gets to have a language. And Felldir had one more thing. Dragonrend. Yours are frul. Mortal. Finite. Temporary. 3 words. The entire architecture of the shout. A weapon unlike anything else that exists. Not because of what it does physically, forcing a dragon to land, but because of what it does to a dragon's experience of itself. Dragons are not just long-lived. They are, in their own understanding, beyond the concept of ending. The oldest of them predates mortality as a category. To a dragon, the idea that it could cease is not frightening the way something familiar can be frightening. It is incomprehensible. Dragonrend forces that translation. It takes the 3 words and drives them into a dragon's soul. Briefly, the creature that does not understand ending understands ending. No dragon can ever learn Dragonrend. This is not circumstance. It is a cosmological impossibility. Dragons are immortal by nature, and the concept of mortality is so foreign to them that the knowledge tears at what they are. Paarthurnax, who gave the first tongues everything else, could not give them this. This they had to build from themselves, from what they had lived, from what they had watched happen to everyone they loved. The shout was crafted entirely from hatred, by people who had suffered under Alduin's rule. They encoded that into the dragon language. They turned grief into grammar. Felldir stood at the summit and named the dead. Galthor, Sori, Birkir. 3 people who had tried to face Alduin and had not come back. He named them not as eulogy, but as reason. This was why. This was what the scroll was for. And then, I brought the Elder Scroll. Hakon's reply has come down intact. We agreed not to use it. He did not say he had changed his mind. He did not say circumstances required it. I never agreed. The battle was not yet over. Gormlaith was still alive. That is what changes everything. The plan to banish Alduin through time, to use the Elder Scroll to tear a wound in causality and send the World Eater forward into an unknown era, buying the world time it did not know it was buying, was never something Felldir reached for at the last possible moment. It was the plan. It had always been the plan. He brought the Elder Scroll to the summit of the throat of the world, knowing what he intended to do with it. His companions knew he had it. What they had not accepted was that he had never genuinely considered the alternative. He had said it himself before the fight began. Alduin cannot be killed like a lesser dragon. He had stated it plainly, and then watched Gormlaith announce she would take his head anyway, and watched Hakon fall in beside her and said nothing further. So when they charged, Felldir watched. There is something in Felldir's silence in that moment, the fact that he heard whatever she said and did not move, and watched. That the law does not explain and does not need to. He watched Gormlaith go straight at the World Eater. He watched Alduin take her between his teeth and fling her aside. He watched her die on the cold stone of the summit, sword still in her hand, fighting a battle she believed was hers to win. And then Hakon, wounded and desperate. Use the scroll, now! Felldir invoked the contract. He called upon Sister Hawk to witness, summoned words older than Alduin himself, and broke the World Eater's hold on this age. Alduin, we shout you out from all our endings unto the last. And then Alduin is gone. A look of confusion first. Fal Kel, he says in the dragon. Tongue, the Elder Scroll. A question. A surprise. And then nothing where he was. Hakon still bleeding. It worked. You did it. And Felldir stands alone now at the wound of his own making and says, Yes, the World Eater is gone. May the spirits have mercy on our souls. Not triumphant, not relieved. The word is mercy. He understood what he had done. Not just the cost of the battle, the larger shape of it. He had not ended Alduin. He had moved him. He had sent a problem forward in time and handed it to people who did not yet exist, who would have no idea what was coming until it was already there. She does not know what her death was for. Felldir does. He stood at the wound he had made with his own hands, in the silence after the World Eater was gone, and he carried that too. Not just the banishment, but the knowledge of what he had let happen to earn it. The people who trusted him died believing in an ending he had already decided was impossible. He named them. Galtha, Suri, Birkir. He had named them before the battle. In the cold, as the reason. He did not tell them they were also the door. Hakon looked at the empty sky where Alduin had been. The war ended. Without Alduin to lead them, the dragons lost their direction. They were hunted across Skyrim by people who finally had the tools to fight back. The dragon cult scattered. Some were killed outright. Some fled to remote places and waited, still convinced that Alduin would return and raise the faithful. They built the burial mounds, those careful stone enclosures across Skyrim that hold the remains of dead dragons, sealed and patient, designed for the day they would open again. There is something in those mounds that the Dragon War's victors did not account for. The seals were not meant to hold forever. They were meant to hold until Alduin returned, and Felldir, who knew better than anyone that Alduin was not gone, left no instruction about what to do when that day came. The dragon. Priests who survived did something stranger. Many of them died willingly, entombing themselves alongside their followers, performing rituals to maintain the connection across death. The Draugr that fill every ancient Nordic ruin are the followers who kept performing those rituals faithfully until the end, and then kept performing them after. Every ruin is a grave that believes it is temporary. One of the last known remnants of the dragon cult was found in the secluded monastery of Forelhost, high in the Gerel Mountains. The soldiers who eventually laid siege to it found no battle waiting. The cultists had poisoned the wells and then themselves, children among them, rather than live outside the faith. What the records of that siege describe is not only fanaticism, it is a community so organized around a single hope that losing that hope made life unimaginable. They had built everything on the promise of Alduin's return. Without it, there was nothing to be. Every word wall, scattered across Skyrim, those stone tablets carved with words of power in the dragon tongue, is a remnant of a language once forbidden to the very people who now learn from it. The Thuum the ancient Nords used to overthrow the dragon cult is preserved in the ruins of the world the dragon cult built. The weapons are stored in the armory of the defeated enemy. Alduin's wall was raised long after the Dragon War, by craftsmen working under the ancient Dragon Guard. They understood what Felldir had understood. Alduin was not gone. The scroll had purchased time, not victory. So they built a record, part history, part prophecy. They carved everything they knew into the stone. The Dragon War, the Summit Battle, the shout that brought Alduin down, and the 5 omens that would precede his return, and sealed the temple behind a blood seal that only a dragonborn could open. They were leaving a message for a specific person. They just had to wait for that person to exist. Until that visitor arrives, it sits in the dark. After the battle, most people left. Hakon and Gormlaith eventually reached Sovngarde, the Hall of Valor, where the honored dead remain in the company of those they fought beside. Gormlaith did not survive the summit. Hakon did. But both are there when you find them, thousands of years later, ready at last to finish what they could not finish the first time. Felldir carried what he had done into whatever years followed. He lived with the shape of his choice, not just the battle, but the specific weight of having known all along how it had to end, and having said nothing to the people who died believing in a different ending. He reached Sovngarde eventually. He is still the most careful of the 3. But there is a 4th figure, and this one went nowhere. Parthenax, Ambition Overlord Cruelty, chose to remain at the summit of the throat of the world. Not nearby, at it, at the exact spot where the Elder Scroll was used. The exact point in space where time was torn open. He built nothing there. He keeps no retinue. He stayed because he understood what Felldir had understood. Alduin was not gone. He was forward. And this mountain, this peak, was where the wound in time sat open and waiting. He meditates. He works against his own nature, fights every day the version of himself whose name was not a coincidence. Not a saint. Not reformed into something unrecognizable. Just a creature with a catastrophic history, choosing the hardest possible place to live, sitting next to what he helped make. He is still there, thousands of years later, when you climb to the summit. An old dragon in the cold, at the wound, waiting for the person who will finally finish the work. He is genuinely not surprised that you are confused by the sight of him. When you stand at the time wound and read the Elder Scroll, you do not merely observe what happened. You are drawn through the scar itself. the ancient past opens around you. The dark of the summit, the cold stone, 3 figures waiting for wings against the sky, and the knowledge of Dragonrend passes from the ancient tongues to you across the distance of millennia through the simple act of witnessing. Mortal, finite, temporary. You hear those words for the first time in the mouths of the people who built them from their own suffering, and you know them. The wound recognizes the Dragonborn. It has been holding this for exactly you. Then the sky tears open and Alduin arrives, exactly as Paarthurnax promised he would. He has traveled forward through time, through everything the world became in his absence, and landed on the summit from which he was expelled. When Dragonrend strikes him, he says, "You may have picked up the weapons of my ancient foes, but you are not their equal." He is trying to be frightening. He is also, by appearing at the time wound at the exact moment the scroll is read, confirming everything. The problem was never solved at the end of the Dragon War. It was deferred. Felldir sent it forward, and it arrived. And now it is yours. This is what the Dragon War actually is, seen from the far end of it. Not a victory, a deferral, a choice made by a careful old man who understood that the only remaining question was how long the world could borrow, and who decided to borrow as much as he could get, and leave the rest for someone else to carry. He knew. He named it. May the spirits have mercy on our souls. Gormlaith, Golden-Hilt, is at the top of the world. It is dark. It is cold. Her sword is drawn, and she is watching the sky for one more set of wings. She has already killed 4 dragons today. She does not know what the old man is holding. She thinks they are here to end it, to close the account, to win, to finish the thing she has been building her whole life toward. She is tired, and she is not afraid. When Alduin comes, she goes straight at him. She kills 4 dragons in a day, not by accident, but by temperament. She believed in the possibility of winning, and she fought in accordance with that belief all the way to the end. She fills the space between Alduin's arrival and Felldir's scroll with everything she has. She does not know, dying, that her death is the door Felldir needed to open. In Sovngarde, when you find her 3,000 years later, she is not diminished by any of this. She knows the full shape of it now. She knows what she was always for, not the death she thought she was dying toward, but the threshold she was holding open. The people who hold the line are not always the ones who get to decide where it falls. Sometimes the work is held by someone who was never told the whole plan. Sometimes a wall is carved by people who knew they would not be there when it was read. Sometimes an old dragon sits for thousands of years at the edge of a wound in time, meditating against his own name, carrying a vigil in the cold for a visitor who has not yet arrived. If this story found you in the dark and kept you there a little longer than you meant to be, consider subscribing to the channel. And if the night was kind, the like button will be there in the morning. And somewhere above the clouds, in the cold, the old dragon sits in the silence and holds his vigil. He has been waiting a long time. He does not mind. Rest well.